Hello and welcome to Night Clerk Radio. This is episode 129, new music for June. We have some new albums that have been recently released to review, and it's been a hot minute since we've done that. And it's always fun to see what's going on in the world of weird, haunted electronic music. But of course, we have some shout-outs first to get to. So, Birk, how are you doing?
Oh, you did do it. I didn't know if you're going to do your professional introduction of me or not. Yeah. I always sit here waiting, like, when's he going to ask me how I'm doing? So I have to answer it.
Yeah.
And I thought you were just going to go right into shout outs. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about some music.
Yeah. Very different vibes.
Yeah, a little change of pace.
Yeah.
A little change of pace. Yeah. How do you want to do this? You want me to start? You want to
start?
Yeah.
You want
to just do shout outs? You got anything else going on?
No, but we'll start with the shout outs.
All right. I'll go first then. And I'm going to start with a set that never ends. I totally blanked on this. I knew about it, but it didn't make it into the last episode. I'm very sorry for that. But Notorious Secret and Solo Dolo 84 did a Sanctuary set together with Notorious doing the music and Solo doing the visuals, as Wave Squad always does. You know, focus on those vaporwave visuals that we talked about them as an art collective on the last Sanctuary episode. Yeah, super fun because Noda does that great like late night lo-fi classic vaporwave, almost like vapor noir. Sometimes I call it because I know they're super into like noir films. And yeah, just really cool visuals. Really a lot of like fast cutting between all kinds of things. There's movie footage in there. Maybe you want to rewatch Frantic, which is a movie I have not thought about in a long time.
Yeah, no joke.
Because there's clips of that of, you know, Harrison Ford and everybody in that. It's like a late 80s neo-noir Polanski film. You know, the classic man grabs the wrong suitcase sort of story and gets sucked into a world of intrigue. And yeah, it's just a banger. And I want to cover, you know, anybody who has public sanctuary stuff out there, trying to get to it. So that's just, knock it out however I can.
Nice. My first shout out is a short little video documentary that was posted on YouTube by one of our listeners. On the Discord, it's the story of Alien War. And Alien War was a live action sort of alien, like the movie Alien themed haunted house experience that was in London for several years. And where they had actors in like colonial marine costumes and alien costumes, and you'd be running through the corridors that look like, you know, the planet and aliens or the spaceship, and you're just jump scares and steam and fog and all kinds of crazy effects. And it was kind of a one of a kind thing. They thought they were going to branch out and do it other places, but they didn't. But it was quite a unique sort of way of spinning off a big, powerful movie franchise. So it's a neat little documentary and a real interesting look into the past. So yeah, and it's on YouTube, so you can just watch it for free.
It's just right there.
It's just right there.
Just right there. All right. Up next for me, this is an album that is not out yet, but it's a great that we delayed our recording by a day just so I could find out about it and put it on here. But next up is Keyloggers, Cryptojacking, Mere Neurons, Marley Station by Angel Wings Marmalade, who is a side project of Fire Tools focused on like glitchy experimental vaporwave electronic music. So she has the tag of blackened vaporwave, which is kind of interesting because I've only ever heard the blackened adjective in the concept of like metal, like bringing elements of black metal into other genres like blackened death metal. So it's interesting as a vaporwave, but I think Fire Tools is also referred to that project as blackened new age. But yeah, I just love a good bit of like semi-difficult, noisy, glitchy, experimental electronic music. And she's so good at that mastering process and making it sound amazing that it's noisy and glitchy without being mushy. Which is really can be hard to do, but really stands out when someone pulls off that great production. So this is just a demo of a 2 tracks for an upcoming album, but yeah, I'm definitely excited for it.
Nice. Yeah, I really like the album cover, just looking at it. Like it's got the classic metal font where it looks like a big pile of sticks and a cute little cat on a mattress, stained mattress. Yeah, it's a very good aesthetic. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll have to listen to this after we're done.
Yeah.
So yeah. My next one is a new Barber Beats album that was linked to me on the Night Clerk Radio Discord, The Era of Information by Macro Blank and Slower Pace. And yeah, it's just good Barber Beats. You know, just good music to listen to.
Made by people.
Made by people, yeah.
I really like this album too. This is actually one of the few times our shout outs overlap. I thought it was pretty good too. Like Slower Pace I haven't really been following what Macroblank's been doing very much. I know they're hugely popular now, but I really like a lot of slower paces, barber beats of the last couple of years. I don't know what it is about their sample base or what they're doing, but it really works for me more than most barber beats.
Nice. Yeah. So do you have another one?
I do. My third one is just a big old shout out to Vaporwave News Network, aka VNN, founded and run by Alex, who is also the founder of Pacific Plaza Records and DJs under Trucks Passing Trucks. So we've had them on like some Future Funk compilations under that name. And I'm just shouting them out because like I realized I never really have officially in like any way. And I really like them. Alex is a great guy. He always, whenever I order stuff from Pacific Plaza Records, he always leaves a nice note in the package and stuff. And, it's also more direct because through their new release for May 2025 was how I sort of found this album, because it completely slipped by me, even though my album for this episode, even though it's a huge name and somebody who I follow, I just completely missed this release. So if it wasn't for someone else going through and curating a bunch of releases from last month, I would have missed it. So I really appreciate what they do. And
bookmark that page for the monthly updates.
Yeah.
Or
they
if they have
accept all kinds of submissions and stuff. Yeah. So cool. They have articles, they have a podcast, they do reviews. Yeah. And Alex also does a lot of he still does like shows and stuff. Like you said, like a Future Funk show with That's Matt and a couple others in LA. Yeah. Doing that hard work of putting it into the community. Yeah. It's important.
So speaking of community, for my third shout out, the record label Motherboard, who's posted tons of music, a lot of barber beats, a lot of stuff. They're very prolific. They're doing gearing up to do another live show. This is Enter the Void 3. They previously did Enter the Void 1 was in October 30th to November 2, 2020. The follow-up event was October 28th, 2022. The first event was 83 hours live, nonstop live stream, and the second one was 118 hours. And so now they're gearing up for the third show. They don't have an exact date yet, but it's called Enter the Void 3, The Age of Decentralization. So the link that I've posted here is the music artist submission page. So if you're interested, if you're an artist listening to this podcast and you want to do a live set for Motherboard, you should look at the submission page and see what you can submit. They have you completely free to sell cassettes, VHS tapes, etc. of your performance. It's a good marketing tool if nothing else. So I know some artists listen to this podcast, so this might be something fun to check out. And they want to have a lot, so they'll probably let you in if you got
Motherboard. We've talked about a few times on the show, so they've done cool stuff in the past. So that's exciting. Yeah,
there's a little video trailer too that sort of hypes it up, and I'll put a link of that in there too, so you can take a look at it. So those are our shout outs.
All right, let's get to some music.
Dreamlike space. Distorted shadows of lurking menace. The end of the age of innocence.
That is the opening track 1, beginning of the album of Suburbia After Dark by Spiritual Conspiracy. I wanted to get that nice little voice sample in because this is an album that loves sampling from old sources. This is very like Avalanche's era, kind of like Plunderphonics, like lots of sampling, and I'm here for it. I love it. This particular one, I actually typed in the quote to find out where it's from, and this is from a 1970s educational film about surrealism and Dada, and it's from 1971. It's a 16 millimeter educational film, and I found it on archive.org, so you can watch that. But like not everything in this is sampled from that single film, but like Yeah, this is an interesting album. It describes Spiritual Conspiracy is actually a pretty active group. They've released a lot of albums in the last couple of years, but I was the almighty YouTube algorithm recommended one of their albums for me, so I started.
Okay,
that's how I found out about this, and so they just posted this. This album was posted May 20th of this year. So, but they've got like a few dozen, like 20 or so albums up on Bandcamp, and it's interesting because this album in particular they call it sort of ambient metal, at least on the YouTube page, but like it's more. This is like dark lo-fi hip hop to me.
Yeah, I think that the Bandcamp tag darkwave is probably more accurate.
Yeah. There's a tag on YouTube for it on ambient metal, but not on Bandcamp. So
right.
But yeah, this is interesting lo-fi hip hop with sort of a darker element that gets into almost like times like John Carpenter soundtrack levels. Like I was sort of reminded of that. And it is very cinematic in that you kind of get a sense like there's this contrast between these like 1950s, 1970s sounding samples versus this like electronic music that I don't know, for me sort of contrasts. It does get like the idea of like a paranoid suburbs. Yeah. So what are your initial thoughts, Birk?
Yeah, I really like it. It was a nice change of pace. Wasn't sure what to expect. I love all the sampling, so it's interesting. So yeah, there's a bunch of samples. There's a lot of like vocal samples. But on their YouTube channel, they also put out a version that's just the music without the samples. And I don't know, like to me, the samples never felt so intrusive that I wouldn't want them there.
Yeah.
You know, like I guess I'm thinking of like it kind of made sense that Dreamcastle did a narration-free version of Lego Castle. Because you kind of then you truly just have the music. You don't have those vignettes and that plot or anything. And that makes sense, even though I really like the full version of Lego Castle. But in this one, like taking away a lot of the voice samples, I felt like, I don't know, maybe if I was working and I wanted to just listen to it, I kind of get it. But I also feel like there's such an interesting part of the album that you should definitely just listen to it with the samples. It's like the better version to me.
Well, it does the thing where like it puts the samples kind of like, here's the thesis of this song. Here's the vibe we're going for each track. And then it doesn't, after the intro, they don't really use the samples as much. Some tracks will use them as like a looping, as a rhythmic element, but like not too much. And so each one is different enough to sort of inform sort of like the energy or like the sort of feel of the track. Because there's sort of a progression. It starts out more tense, more paranoid, and then sort of gradually in the second half of the album gets more wistful and contemplative and sad, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Some of those later tracks can be a little, not quite melancholy, but
I mean, it's not, like track 12 in particular is back in that John Carpenter territory, a glimpse into the lives of the lost generation. A good track titles in general too.
It's interesting. So the track titles then slightly different between YouTube and the Bandcamp, then I wonder.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that's track 13 on the Bandcamp.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll go by track titles just in case something's been either by one of us or something transcribed a little wrong. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Because it's funny you mentioned track 12 because like the back half of track 12, which on Bandcamp is Violent Earth. That's kind of where I was agreeing with you on like the carpentry because there's just kind of like investigative synth. Like it tends to be like soundscapey and like you kind of know stuff is like happening over it versus tracks that have like more vocals or singing, which then feel like whenever there's, I don't want to say actual music because that's the wrong term, but yeah, whenever there's more of like song structure, I tend to lose some of that like cinematic imaging I have in my head I've talked about where like I really like things like montage, like I can just see montages happening in my head. So like more cinematic stuff, but when it's like singing and stuff, less so. Yeah. I don't know why.
Yeah. And there is some singing on this album too.
Yeah.
The Riding High has got some really nice singing to it. And that's the song that's the song that sticks with me the most after listening to this album several times. Like that is the most earworm of all the tracks. So probably because it's the only one we're singing. It seems like original singing. Like I mean, maybe it's sampled from an original source, from a different source, but it feels like they recorded it specifically for this album. I don't know. There's not a lot in the way of
it's
notes.
hard to say because like we've also gotten so good at stem extraction. That you can like rip really clean vocals out of another song. Yeah. And not even feel like it lost anything in that extraction.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's the technology is making it hard to tell. Yeah. That's why I try not to like sample snoop or think about it too much anymore.
Yeah. Unless it's very obvious.
like so obviously the point. is like reference a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I think tracks that stood out for me just to jump around a little bit. I really liked the jungle, especially through like the middle 2 minutes where it's just kind of like drums and like a little bit of like some vocal samples. And then there's just kind of like lo-fi drums and little sound effects here and there, little synth effects.
Yeah, that's the last track.
That type of not on Bandcamp.
Okay,
it's track 11 on Bandcamp. Yeah, this is gonna be it'll be interesting. We'll see.
Oh yeah, because there's a bonus track on the Bandcamp version. That's what's starting it up, I think.
Okay,
yeah, Against the Waves. Yeah, there's only 13 on the YouTube version, which is what I was listening to. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I do also like one. I did like that track. I do like Housewife Junkie.
Yep,
that was a lot of fun. It's a great title. What are you, just a housewife junkie? You know, like great sample, very laid back, pretty groovy guitar. Yeah, it's this housewife junkies have a good time. It sounds like, judging by that track.
Yeah, I do love all those little samples. I was talking about the wanting the vocal samples, and it's interesting because their artist description kind of ends with the phrase built from the detritus of the internet and sample culture, which is actually the artist description on Bandcamp is credited to the Caretaker on behalf of, I guess, OBO SC, Spiritual Conspiracy. And that really works for me because there is so many interesting. Detritus is one of my favorite words to describe it. I've used it a lot on this show. And yeah, it just got me thinking about all the, I feel like, we're far enough away from lockdown that our patience for it has declined somewhat in movie night, but we used to just sit and watch, like, there's YouTube channels like 16 millimeter AV Geeks and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Where just like constantly ripping old, weird.
I mean, we still do that too.
Even filmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were watching,
like I used to stay up like 3 a.m. watching like just weird old shit. Now I just kind of want to go to bed. But, like we were watching those weird, like, here's a drunk guy biking around Scotland and
or
stuff in like the 70s.
Office Safety, from the 1970s. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Don't open up all those drawers on that cabinet. It could fall on you,
Yeah. Which was done by the same people who did Shake Hands with Danger, which we talked about. It was very funny.
Yeah.
And so just trying to also be like, no one's working down at the quarry anymore. Let's do a file cabinet safety video. Yeah, keep the money flowing.
I mean, nothing will top the bowling trick shot 1940s.
Oh, Papa Bear Papa.
Yeah, exactly.
Slower than a snail going to a snail's funeral. So
but yeah, like there's
greatest lines.
Pulling some of these, like there's a real art, there's real skill in finding those really good samples from older material and then like using them in music. Like that I was hooked on this album from that first sample. It's like, ooh, yeah, they're cooking, man. I gotta listen to all this. And like they kept it up, and
yeah,
not many artists do that again. So
no, that's why I'm always super impressed by visual people who are just like digging through that to find that. Yeah, that's one of the coolest things about that shout out I said, Solo Dolo 84 and Wave Squad, and they do visuals, or like Lux Elite does live visuals, and just like going through endless hours of 90s commercials, 80s films, 80s commercials, and trying to find like all these little interesting things that aren't like the same 3 things in every other. Just finding like that new material.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's a lot of work and it's really interesting. So
yeah, I am here for it. So yeah, this is a fun album. I'm definitely going to be listening to some of their more albums because they have a pretty large discography, and that I find some other good stuff to listen to. But yeah, it's a delight. It's also like it's in that realm. It's not really like lo-fi per se. Like there's not a lot of like lo-fi techniques of like the synth stuff sounds pretty clean. Like the samples are obviously lo-fi because they're sourced from 16 millimeter films, from 50 years ago. But like it's still like got that. It's got a beat. It's got that hip hop quality.
Beat driven.
Yeah, it's beat.
It's kind of drum centric. Yeah, drums forward.
So it sort of occupies that same sort of musical space for me as like lo-fi hip hop, but like it's got a little darker. It's got more of an edge, and it's really interesting. So I'm glad more artists are working in this space rather than I mean, I love Signal Wave and Vaporwave, but like, man, this is cool. I love this.
Yeah. Sampling like a different avenue into sampling. Like,
yeah.
And I know we got a little off track talking about some of the sources and like some of the meta stuff. So I don't know if I really gave the actual music its due, but I thought it was a really enjoyable listen.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
Really, really cool. Really great find.
Yeah.
And that was, normally I say that was a bit from, but these tracks are short. So that was most of track 5, Netscapes, off our second album, Vistas by Ghost Enterprise. So this is an album that I found out about through that VNN New Music from May 2025 article. So once again, thank you, Alex, for all your hard work. So Ghost Enterprise is a side project of Dan Mason. And I was really excited that he had a new release under this project because Dan Mason is one of those like big names that we've never really gotten to in some sense, outside of like showing up in compilations or in like shows and stuff. And, you know, Hypnagogic, it's like a classic album. Love that album. And you know, if we had been doing more new music in 2023, I definitely would have done I'll Be All Right. I thought that was a really good album, but just didn't work out until now. So we get to do this one. And I really like this album, both sonically and conceptually. So I'm sort of calling it's not tagged as this, but I'm calling it Frutiger Breaks because it's really in that celebration of that mid-aughts technology. So Vistas, I'm going to assume is Windows Vista, it's like 2007-ish, I want to say. And that comes up in the album cover. You got your fish, your Windows taskbar of the time. All of the track titles are like this. They're references to things or technology at the time, Real Audio Player, you know, Deep Web Dance Club, which we'll get to, Homepage, Digital Currency, Password Reset, etc. And they're just these really upbeat, energetic. I actually picked one of maybe the less upbeat ones for the opening sample. Well, maybe that's just personal taste, but in general, I call it that Frutiger Breaks because there's the Frutiger Aero, which you talked about a lot, both on the show and the page, which is that design style from that time. And then, yeah, it's all these little upbeat break tracks and they're cool. It's just like a ton of little ideas and vignettes. Consequently, kind of keeps it like really high energy. And I just thought it's a bop, like quite frankly. Oh, yeah. It's just a super fun album to listen to. Yeah. What'd you think? Yeah, I do also like Frutiger Aero style. Like that's what it's tagged on YouTube. And like there's a ton of music and mixes coming out with that vibe or that tag. And I think this is one of the best executions of that theme that I've listened to in a while. And it really does have that like tech utopianism of that Windows Vista era of like everything's glass and metal and clean and perfect on your little MP3 player or software on your computer. And like, yeah, everything's smooth and the future is great. Don't worry about reality. And this album also has some really interesting, like subtle things going on about it because while, it does have this bright, bouncy feel, there is this bit of like lo-fi dissonance throughout the album that I found really interesting. So yeah, it seems kind of superficial, but like when you actually listen to it, it's like, oh, okay, Dan's got some shit going on, and it's pretty, it's very fun. So yeah, I think there has to be like a whimsical nostalgia or something for that kind of era, like that. Just that design, that Frutiger era is like super popular, but it's at this weird time because I was thinking about this. I don't want to get too much into it because I think it's gonna be a future episode, but it's like a really interesting time in internet culture and history because it's like the rise of all this stuff that would end up like kind of destroying the internet as something useful, right? Because like the mid-aughts, you got Facebook coming, you got Reddit coming, you got YouTube coming, and you're gonna get into this situation where we're talking about now is like the 4 sites, right? You just kind of go to like 4 places and they'll just shuffle links around between each other, you know, instead of like this promising broad globe spanning community where I can go out and find anything I want. And that hasn't like really materialized in the same way. I think also there's like some great headlines. I don't know if it was recently or maybe last year, but like I'm going to paraphrase, but I'll get the point across, which is like, I knew these tech bros would destroy the world, but I didn't think they'd be such fucking losers. Oh yeah. Or something like that. So like, you know, we have all this great technology. It just ended up in the hands of the dumbest fucking dweebs.
Yeah,
ever.
I mean, it's also like what the first iPhone was like 2007, right? And like that really became a game changer in how the internet worked because so many more people jumped on.
And they're just always with you.
Yeah, it's just always
like
with
a
you.
separate thing.
Yep, and that changed everything. That they had phones in there, and so everyone started uploading cameras, so you can start uploading photos everywhere. I also think like just as a stylistic thing that like the 2000s are also sort of the highlighted the skeuomorphic design interface, and skeuomorphic means like it's an object that retains ornamental design cues from the original. And so like in software, that's like making your save icon look like a floppy disk, even though you don't use floppy disks anymore. And like, yeah.
And sometimes it can even go further, right? So like it can be like in your DAW, it can be like making the controls to adjust things like, I don't know, like attack or whatever, look like physical dials.
Yep. Yeah, super
and
common.
Stuff, or like having like actual like little mixer, like old school like mixer panel knobs in your mixer instead of just like a thing you can slide up and down. Stuff like that. And it's it was super dominant at the time.
Yeah, it was actually like I'm looking at the Wikipedia for it right now, and it said Apple under Steve Jobs was known for his use of skeuomorphic designs, and that continued until after he died.
Yeah,
and then they changed things. So this album kind of encompasses that era of design, and it comes across in the music because like we have a lot of like very clean tracks and very pristine sounds, and like it's trying to get you to think about this perfect world. And like the cover art again is like a goldfish in a pool of perfect blue water with bubbles and a lens flare. And there's, Vistas taskbar at the bottom, which I just noticed. It's great. So that's the state of mind you should be in. If you're too young to remember that, thank you for listening to our podcast. How did you find it? But
it's interesting. So going to the music, though, I'll talk a bit about some tracks. So there's a lot of tracks. It's 26 tracks because there are all these like little shortish ideas. So I feel like if I try to talk about every single one, like, which first of all, we didn't even do for the album we just talked about before the break. But also, I feel like I just get a little repetitive and long-winded if I try to talk about every track and what I liked about it. So I just kind of picked a few highlights for me personally. And if you have some highlight tracks, also, tag them on.
Sure.
So I'm just going to go in order through the albums. I loved track 2, Shopping Center, because I love the breaks. You got the break drums going on. And then I liked with like their like minimal keys, like on like the quarter note or the half note, just every so often it's like a little punctuation from keys, but letting the kind of the drums and the bass do most of the work. That's stylistically just something I like. It feels, I've mentioned, I think I used this term in the last bit, like Dreamcast breaks, where it feels like when there's just every so often that piano, it feels like I'm just watching like a menu screen in a game.
Yes, I specifically mentioned like racing game menu music. Yeah.
Yes, racing game menu music. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. I love it.
There's something really interesting I like about this that shows up a lot on the album too. Is there's this very subtle kind of slowdown, stuttering kind of effect at times that I heard that like it sounded to me like the game console can't handle this game for a second, so it's chugging along, and that's what I really like about this album more than anything else is that there's this slight like dissonance where it's supposed to be this perfect utopian and like clean music, but like then it kind of slows down a little bit. You're like, what's going on? Is my computer breaking? Oh, it's intentional. The album's just doing this, and it's like a perfect emulation of that era because it's like this Dreamcast racing game can't handle everything that the program has put in it. So it's just the frame rate's dropping, the music's chugging along. It's great. Yeah.
It really leans into the aesthetic in a lot of ways, that audio aesthetic of that era, which I was super into. Next track I wanted to shout out is track 9, Deep Web Dance Club, which I'm actually going to play a little bit from right now. And I love this track because it stood out to me. Like sometimes maybe like I lose track of all the tracks. So, but to me, this one felt like trancey almost, which I really liked. Like, it's got that 4 on the floor, some more melodic kind of long sustained keys. Maybe not as involved as like what people think of as like these long, like 10-minute trance tracks. But I just really thought it was really pleasant to listen to. I really love the synths on it.
Yeah, it's very clean. Yeah, it's a bop for sure. Yeah,
for sure. Another track, just interest of time, just kind of keep moving. I really like track 14, Digital Currency, which I sort of, it sounds dismissive, but this is actually a compliment. This is the closest we get to the required underwater track, which we've always joked about needing like an underwater track. And that's just because it has these nice little like ascending kind of bubbly synth gestures. Like, you know, like for some reason, as soon as that first little like 3-note little synth gesture that kind of appears as like this little, well, sort of like, I guess, a group of 6, like do. But I just, for some reason, I thought of like an underwater experience.
Yeah. There's definitely, kind
of smooth and light, but more interesting drums underneath than you usually get on that type of stuff. So I think it all really worked for me. It's kind of everything I like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, a little more of that dissonance too, I think. A little more of that, the slowdown, chugging along. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm just going to blow through mine. Online Romance, track 18, which I am shouting out because it features one of my favorite things that kind of appears on this album a couple times, which are just those like MIDI synth horns. Those like little lo-fi, just like super high attack dudes that come in.
Yeah, they're very cheesy.
They just appear.
They're very cute
on tracks.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah, it's just very appropriate. It just really punctuates tracks they are. And the last one I just was going to shout out, just kind of give a feel of like everything that's on there, is Love Blooms in a Chat Room, track 25, which, first of all, even if it's not true in my headcanon, it's a Metal Gear reference. You know, can love bloom on the battlefield, Snake?
Yeah.
But I just loved the synths on this one.
Yeah. There's a little more glitching, I felt like, a little more prominent in this track.
A little glitchy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I just like those like new agey type synths. I've talked about loving like new age as a sample base or like as an inspiration. And I think it really works, but still brings like the slightly more upbeat than you typically hear. Yeah. So it's just really well put together.
Yeah. I also like the ending track 26, Walled Gardens. It's very peaceful. It's got a really nice, like, heavenly chorus kind of effect, and these waves of synth pads sort of lapping at my ears. It's nice, and again, a great way to send off an album like this. Like, it's very energetic, but like let's wind down a bit before we have to shut the computer off. You know.
Yeah, it's great. It's hard to keep myself. I just was like, I'm just gonna pick 5 tracks to mention by name, but I sort of implicitly liked all of them for one reason or another. I think these 5 kind of capture all the different elements that I like to spread across the album, but just a really fun put together love letter to a very specific era of technology that I think is a thing that I don't really think of myself as having much nostalgia for the aughts, but I think I might have more than I realized. Just the sort of thing I'm realizing listening to a lot of this Frutiger Aero aughts nostalgia starting to appear more and more and more refined in vaporwave and associated artists. It's like, oh yeah, there was kind of like a last little bit of like pre-real job life there. Yeah. And like pre-current internet, current culture nonsense, which in some ways is nothing new, but it was probably like the last time where I was sort of detached enough from it.
Well, it's also like the last era where like tech companies felt like they were actually creating something of use rather than just try to grift money from you, like, and try and set up rent or become digital landlords. Yeah.
I mean, because they already existed at the time, but this is also right around when Google was like, oh wait, we can make trillions off sales data. Yeah. You know, that rise.
Yeah. I mean, it was like I mean, tech companies have been chasing the high of the iPhone ever since, and they've never, and you know, because
there's that, but I mean, I think actually just working in this era, in this area, I think the Google realization of like big data behind their search, monetizing their search data for ad revenue is like what actually companies are really chasing. I mean, that's like OpenAI, you know, just they hire like a big ad guru because they can start to sell ads off all your like chat data and stuff, do the same thing. So I think it's that last little era of like some naivety about like what capitalism is and specifically like corporate profit motive capitalism is going to do to a very otherwise beautiful technology.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was the end of the techno hippie and beginning of the techno fascists. So
yeah. Techno-fascism, techno-feudalism are both things. So I think we'll get into this in more detail in like maybe a bonus episode or something.
Yeah.
So I don't want to belabor the point too much, but I think it's a rich topic to talk about. I think there's like I said, I'm just gonna repeat myself and say it's a lovely, lovely love letter. Super fun listen to that era.
Yeah.
So I definitely hope you check it out.
Yeah, exactly. Both really good, fun albums.
Yep.
And interesting in different ways. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Our next episode will be far grimmer and darker as we look at the vermistide. And by that, I mean vermis. And what is vermis? Well, you'll find out. You'll have to listen. It's a whole thing, it turns out. And there's a musical aspect to it. There's a non-musical aspect to it. That's all I'll say.
Yep.
Yeah. But you'll find out.
I'm glad you picked this because like I remembered we talked about it like a long time ago doing it, and we can finally do it.
Yeah,
exciting.
It is. It's very much up our alley. It's extremely haunted and extremely hauntological. But we're also probably be talking about the stuff we're talking about techno utopianism and that kind of thing, and the late 2000s on our next Patreon bonus episode, which every month we release a Patreon bonus episode, releasing a couple more of them to the public so you can get a sense of what they're like. But that is on patreon.com/nightclerkradio. And of course, Birk has done some solo episode content, and we have a desktop wallpaper, and we have a great Discord community where we share links and talk about vaporwave and signal wave and all kinds of cool stuff. We're on Blue Sky. We have a website, nightclerkradio.com, and a Facebook page. And but the important thing is to rate and review us on your podcasting app of choice, and tell your friends, tell your enemies, and like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Yeah, if you like that. The YouTubes, yeah. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.